alive. Yeah. Uh, let me see. This thing. I also should check audio. Now that I'm here in time, I can check audio. Uh, how does this thing sound? It sounds so weird anyway. At least, at least it will, I guess. So that's something. Yeah. Uh, Something else. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay. There it is. Stopping that thing, and yeah. Yeah. I should change scene. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Let me. What a what a long day. Anyway, here we are. I, I don't know, it has been like a week or so since the last occasion that we read the Mahabharata. I think so. I don't really remember how long it was. I know that it was like a while ago or something like that, but I don't really remember exactly when did we for the last time read anything. So yeah, also like this. That's the proper zoom. I think we can go like one more. Let's see. One more? No way. What? Yeah, yeah. 50. 150 seems so okay. What a crazy thing. Anyways, yeah, since I don't know, I wasn't really expecting in any manner to find out that yeah, all of this stuff is so extremely long. I I guess at the very least it's good in that sense. It has a stuff inside of it and it has a lot of substance, so to speak. So that's something. It's it's useful enough. It's so to speak. If the Mahabharata can be in any way called interesting, the fact that it also contains so much information about diverse cultures and other events makes it an even more useful work than many other creations that also came around the same time as this book, particularly. I think it can be said that it is, in in essence, something quite essential and quite nice to have the possibility. I wouldn't just stay in of analyzing in general of having. I guess it's it's a very good work. It's a very interesting work. So that's something I I think it's nice, and it also in many ways. For example, it has a lot of tiny lessons inside of it. That's the sort of normal structure of any religious text, so to speak, that they all have something to do with traditions and different repeating patterns within the society. So that's nice. That's informative, nothing else. I don't know. But yeah, we were at this point also, I have to say, it's incredibly crazy to know that we have kept going. I Yeah, we are capable of continuing something like this. I think it's surprising to see how much information can truly just one story hold. Not in the sense of, I don't know. There are other books that you can read that maybe are as equally long, perhaps, but at the same time, there are not as many events. It's the incredibly varied array of topics that are utilized within the whole epic that it makes it be quite a good writing in itself, even if it isn't taken as something mythological in any other manner, I guess. So that's also nice. Besides that, I think that yeah, I don't know. It's just we are probably like one yeah, not even 15% into reading this, I think. So we also have to try and pick up the pace, I guess. It's an interesting reading, but at the same time, there are not that many things to particularly point out in any direction. Not because they do not exist, but rather because it is not a necessity to do so. So, yeah, I don't know. It's once the content itself is understood of the way in which things are said and whatnot, that's easily overlookable, I guess. So, yeah, anyway, Kanto 168. Nivataka, Nivataka Vachai Yudha Parva continued. Arjuna continues. I passed all the places that the Maharishis had spoken highly of, and at last saw the ocean of Devaluka, the inexhaustible lord of waters. I saw upon its swelling waves that looked like mountains of water, crashing against each other and then rolling away. I saw thousands of ships filled with sandstones. I saw those great, fabulous fish Timingilas and tortoises that looked like submerged stone hills. And everywhere in the water were thousands of shells, like stars in a lightly clouded night sky. Thousands upon thousands of jewels floated in clusters, and a violent wind whirled them about. Oh, this was a rare and wonderful to see. As I looked upon the marvelous ocean of the mighty tides, I saw the city of the Ranavas not too far away. Matali, expert Sarati, guided the chariot, and it submerged, and, and all its embellishments smoothly slid underwater. But he sat firmly in his seat and drove the craft with force, frightening all who heard its rumble. The Novas heard that sound like clouds rumbling in the sky, and thinking I was the lord of the gods, were panic stricken. They all stood with their bows and arrows, javelins and axes, maces and clubs, terrified, quickly making arrangements for the defense of their city. The alarmed Navas clanged shut the gates, hiding everything inside. I took my conch, the Varata of the deafening roars, and blew gleefully on it many times. That sound filled the sky and rang everywhere. Even the mightiest beings were terrified and hid. And then, O Mahabharata, all the Daityas, the children of Diti, the Nivatakavachas, shining with ornaments, appeared in their thousands, wearing all kinds of armor, with myriad weapons in their hands. They had they had iron javelins, maces and clubs, hatchets, sabers and discs, satagnis and how do you say that? Besundis, and colorfully striped and bejeweled swords. After thinking a moment about which way to go, Matali steered the Bimana on to level ground. Oh, best of the Maharatas. The horses were so swift that everything we passed went by in a blur. I could see nothing, and I found this strange. Then the Navas began to play thousands of oddly shaped musical instruments, making a discordant, nerve-wracking cacophony. At the awful noise, thousands of enormous fish that were like heels streaked away. The stupendous force of demons flew at me, losing hundreds of thousands of arrows. O Maharata, a savage battle followed between the Danavas and me. I was ready to annihilate the Nivatakavachas, the Varishis, Danavarishis, Brahmarishis, and Siddhas came to witness the contention. Eager for my victory, the Munis praised me with the same sweet speeches they had used for Indra in the war of old, fought over Tara. Yeah, that's what is this 166 canto. I don't know. I don't really pursue anything particularly important, I guess. I mean, there are a handful of things to mention to some degree. Uh, the multiplicity of possibilities offered so far by what this story has inside of itself is not so much as something directly obvious to the first glance, but also it is something that, by trying to realize that we indeed do not have so much as a correct way of analyzing it, makes it so that any possible analysis might be indeed an open possibility, but at the same time, there are many interpretations that do not actually have that much importance, so to speak. I think, yeah, you can interpret, for example, Arjuna, the guy who is fighting right now, could be seen as a form of virility or as a form of dominance and whatnot. That's a possible way of reading it, yeah. But at the same time, the point I I wouldn't say is particularly that. It's it's an obvious thing. It's an obvious interpretation that anybody can get. So I wouldn't say that the message is in any particularly complex idea. I guess that will be a sort of way of saying it. It's the supremacy at the best. Like there might be a possible interpretation at the best. The idea that one human who is to some degree perfectly identical to a divine being gets to fight with other divine beings of lesser divinity to some degree, I guess, wouldn't truly justify seeing all of this particular story as the human being better than the gods. It's not about that. It's the subordination that the Pandavas, as in the most powerful beings of these stories, besides the gods themselves, have to go through in terms of following what the gods speak, doesn't indicate in any way that all of this is a revelation or a rebellion. That's the proper term. A rebellion against the gods. It's just being more closely related to what the divinity as a concept, as an abstract concept might be, I guess, but not much more. And I think it's to some degree it's fine. It doesn't require to be much more than just, yeah. Once the human can follow all the different rules that they are being imposed, they get to enjoy all of these benefits. As in, for example, now you could say the allegory is that the human can fight out of the different divine situations that they might find. If you have to translate this event in any other language of interpretation, it might as well be the human gets to fight the demons who are as equally terrible as the inner gods to some degree. This idea of how some particular societies used to destroy one another for the sake of perfecting their particular ways of understanding reality is pretty much in line with this particular explanation of, yeah, there were all of these other deities who didn't get to reign over what all of the tradition of the, in this case, the Pandavas and whatnot, and the Sanskrit scriptures. Yeah, what the Sanskrit scriptures themselves talk about. So I can guess you can also have that particular possible reading. It's not truly Something like that, I wouldn't say. I, at best, you can have another more. Is it metaphysical? I don't think it's metaphysical, but it's just, yeah. And you could say, because of the proper divinity, the human can deal with the bigger evils of their own life, I guess, something like that. But there are also many other given things already. In the Mahabharata, a very repeating theme is that the human needs to take care of itself to some degree. It's not just, okay, if you do everything well, the God is going to make your life easier. It's more along the lines of if you do everything well, your life will be good. And even more, you can be in contact with any kind of deity to allow yourself to have even more benefits after you die. Let's say it like this. In video game terms, you could say the basic requirements of existence, you can all fill them by just being a good being, living a good life. But at the same time, the divinity opens up the possibility of choosing every other alignment of how you are going to end up after existing for this one instance. Mm, and that's the even of most religions. I guess it's not just contained within here. It's the normal stuff of every single one of them. I wouldn't say, yeah, that is what applies here the most. I don't think so. But yeah, the point was, it didn't really have much. Continuing. Canto 169. Nivatakavacha Yudha Parva continued. Arjuna continues. Bharata, the Nivatakavachas, armed to their teeth, rushed ferociously at me. They blocked the path of the chariot and, roaring loudly, surrounded the chariot and covered me with their arrows. Other demons flung darts and hatchets, spears and axes at me. My chariot was enveloped in a blizzard of arrows, maces, and clubs. Some truly dreadful looking Nivatakavachas, armed with bows and heavy arrows, ran at me. I shot 10 swift, sure shafts from my Gandiva into each of them, driving them back with those stone sharpened darts. My horses, in the skillful hands of Matali, moved like the wind, with incredible agility and speed, trampling the sons of Danu and Diti everywhere. Although thousands of horses were yoked to my Rata, Matali's masterly chariotry made it seem they were only a few. So smoothly did our chariot fly. Hundreds of Danavas fell dead by being trampled under the horses' hoofs, by being run over by the chariot wheels, and by my blistering arrows. There were others who, though there, lay in their chariots with their weapons still strapped on, and the charioteers slain. The horses dragged the chariots chaotically here and there. Now the greatest Danava warriors came to fight, using sorcerer's weapons to cover all sides and directions. I was hard pressed. I saw Matali's incredible prowess then, as he steered his fiery steeds, breaking through the net of demon arrows with such ease. Hardened, I killed hundreds of thousands of the Navas with my astras. Parantapa, seeing me range the field and putting forth all my prowess, Sagrastariotiro was pleased. Some Nivatakavachas were crushed to death by the horses and chariots. Some gave up the fight, but others battled on, shooting storms of arrows. I began to kill them with the hundreds of thousands of weapons I could command with mantras of the Brahmastra. Hurried by me, enraged, those Asuras attacked me with a torrent of clubs, arrows, and swords. Then, Maharata, I invoked Indra's favorite weapon, supreme astra of breathtaking Urhas, and loosed it at the attacking Tomara horde and desiccated the swords and tridents they hurled. When I had destroyed their weapons, I pierced each of them with 10 arrows. Arrows flew from the Gandiva like rows of black bees. Matali was jubilant. The Navas showered me with dark shafts, but I deflected them. The Nivatakavachas smothered me in a fog of arrows, and I contained them again with superior astras, swift and fairy, which could baffle other astras, and I killed thousands of demons more. Blood flowed from their torn bodies like a monsoon waterfall down a mountain slope. My arrows struck them like Indra's thunderbolts and inflamed them. Sorry. Their wounds bled copiously. The power of their weapons was diminished, and the Nivatakavachas began to use Maya to fight me. Understandable. That's count 169. I think it's yeah. If you try to analyze anything that is contained within the combat cantos, I think there is so much content inside of them that you might as well lose track of which of all the possible ideas might as well be the most important of highlighting to some degree, I guess, because yeah, sort of unrelated. I remember I have been studying for a little bit stuff that I had myself that I needed to finish studying, and what I found out was in one of the many lessons what one of the particular persons who had an interest in teaching, not just a professor, the person who had an interest in teaching did was they left many diverse clues of things on stuff in many ways in which you could try to get what the particular idea is, not because the idea itself is important, but rather because all of those things might lead to other places. In that very same sense, in these scenes of combat, if we need to call them something, there are many particularly interesting ideas that are contained within just one paragraph. Yeah, one paragraph. I guess there are even some here. It's just one sentence. When I had destroyed their weapons, I pierced each of them with 10 arrows. Why is it important to say 10 arrows? Assuming that every single word might carry some kind of meaning behind it. Why 10 arrows? Why not five? Why not six? Why not just arrows as a common denominator? Why 10 particularly? It's I think yeah. It's not that this these particular parts of the story lack anything to say. It's rather that I guess within the I think I can give this sort of explanation or justification, if nothing else. Those moments of conflict might contain many things that are particular to the moment in which the story itself was being written, the different stories that it contains and that it encodes with other tools of narration inform what the proper context and what's the correct way of interpreting things like these particular events have and what these particular ideas are trying to refer to exactly in the moment in which it is being observed, I guess, occurring basically. In other words, it's not possible to be capable of fully knowing which particular tool of recognition should be used to understand where this comes or what is this trying to aim at, because the conflicts are overly specific to the times in which the writing and the transfiguration of the events was happening. Also, I guess one of the many things is, and the possibility implying that, I can say it like this. I think it wouldn't be such a crazy theory to express something that might as well be the most understandable idea is India had in such a huge amount of tribes. Every single one of them had different deities, and to some degree, all of them had to fight the different deities. There are some stories within the different traditions and different realms of observation of how the similar narrations come from India. There are both the gods, the Asuras from this part of the religion, and the other version of the Asuras in which they are just normal beings, so to speak, more humane looking beings that can see the other concept of an Asura, that very human looking creature that is mostly like a violent being or something like that. Both things coincide in that there are lots of struggles of power. It might as well be interpreted all of that has to deal with different tribes trying to make sense out of which god is the most important one. It is encoded in the way of saying that, yeah, the gods themselves were fighting. Religious processes were happening in order to try and explain all of the previous wars that had happened during those times. I think, I don't know, I think I am sort of going incredibly off rails in terms of, yeah, and it might be something that needs to be observed properly within all of the places that contain the backgrounds of India and whatnot, but at the same time, they don't really have those traditions. We don't really have the possibility of getting there and just invading other culture to understand all of those things. Maybe there is no way we can trace anything like this. For example, there is one of the many things that I observed from the cultures of these people. I remember seeing was recently in a documentary that I saw. Something happens with the bodies that the Hindus are left with after the humans die. They burn them to a crisp. It shouldn't need to be something so bad, but they even let the bones get broken down. If that is to happen, I don't think this tradition started today. It might as well be one of the oldest traditions. And if such events were something so common, for example, something that happens here for such long periods of time is, or so consistently throughout the whole work, is these different rites that require um, some sort of ghee, I think they call it, or something like that, that needs to be used especially for the fire. Maybe they use special components from the bone, something like that. I don't know, man. I wouldn't say. I do not know enough about their story to be capable of saying with confidence that maybe the story that might be behind the nowadays available cultures that exist within India might as well be researched through looking back at their previous societies unavoidably, but I don't think there are proper ways to trace them. They never liked to leave proper views or proper ways of recognizing what backgrounds they have. One of the most common ideas that I find here is they do not want to talk about anything that has to deal with, for example, this idea of the end of existence might as well be something already preceded. In that very same signification, the end of life is also something that is unavoidable. The way in which they treat the lack of, I wouldn't say lack of importance, I think that that might as well be the issue with our cultures, in which the the way in which we see death is such a negative one, but something along the lines of these people have the possibility of not needing to associate so much with their past. I wouldn't say this directly bad, but based on what we can see, I think that to some degree, a change in perspective in which the meaning of just one life that we used to have nowadays is a little bit different, and I guess for the current traditions of the world, something quote unquote better probably. I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I just feel like when subjected to what I was talking about, this analysis of other events from the past and whatnot, I think I don't see that much existence of anything in these places. There is too much of a desire for more simpler forms of existence within this culture. And I don't know, I think it's weird. If nothing else, it's weird. But it is still something funny enough to see. It is something worth noticing, I guess. But at the same time, not such a not such a simple thing to pick up in terms of maybe maybe they are just part of how they always found it appropriate to be, I guess. I mean, they always had people like the Kshatriyas and whatnot. The you have the divisions of categories, the Brahmans or the Brahmins, and the Kshatriyas, and the more sort of peasants that we can call them here. All of those things did exist, but at the same time, the way of picturing the need for what might be called endless conflict makes it look like they are very much obliged to have stuff like that. I don't know. I don't even know if in in the present day they still have Kshatriyas within their cultures. I would think not. I what have the Kshatriyas converted into politicians? No way. I I, I have zero idea what their particular transformation of the position of a Kshatriya changed into. And also, it's fantastic to know that I know absolutely nothing about that. It should be a more publicly available information or more shared one. I mean, the Kshatriyas were a position that existed within this sort of culture, so it is weird to see that we don't talk about them nowadays anymore. If they still existed, I think we would continue having conflicts in a way which we stopped having in what could be, I guess, the medieval era or stuff like that. Not even things like the World War might be considered conflicts within Kshatriyas. If we want to try to apply the same vision that came from this tradition into the whole world, I don't think so. The position of a politician and the position of a Kshatriya, I don't think was that. No, yeah, they are also to some degree politicians. I mean, all the Pandavas are Kshatriyas and all those Kshatriyas, besides their main woman, so to speak, or their only woman, have the possibility of holding positions of power like kings and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we also got rid of, with the advent of modernity, we got rid of any other position like, I guess, yeah, a king. We don't have kings anymore. Maybe that's when the com- convergence of cultures between what might as well be a more basic feudal way of seeing the world, like what was these people's governance and what not, compared to the introduction to the more is it capitalism? I think steam revolution world. At that point, the steam machine revolutionized changes in the structures of power and whatnot, I guess. They are, yes. Oh my god. They are, yes, something different, but at the same time, they are not that distant, I guess. They are something, that's all I can say, but brother, what a crazy story, I guess, I don't know. Let me try to continue. Anyway. No, man. Canto 170. Nuatakavacha Yudha Parva continued. Arjuna says, a sudden shower of rocks, big as trees, rained down on me, but I blasted those boulders with a volley from Mahendra's weapon, almost equal to his Bahara. When the rocks had been powdered, a fire sprang up, and the dust fell like sparks. A cataract of water now fell, its stream of it as thick as an axle rod. Its massive torrents filled the sky in all directions. Confusion gripped me at the downpour and the howling of the wind and the roaring of the lightyears. The water fell without pause, filling all the space between earth and sky, and for a moment I stood rooted. Recovering quickly, I discharged another devastra I had received from Indra, the Visoshana of fire, and all the water was instantly vaporized. Oh, Mahabharata, when the rocks had been pulverized and the water dried up, the Danavas created illusions of fire and wind. I used a weapon of water to put out the flames, and one that made a wall of stone to shield me from the wind. Now the Nivatakavachas besieged me with a myriad weapons of stone, water, fire, and wind all together. All around, a thick, gloomy darkness spread and enveloped in that black night of the world. Our horses reared, whining in terror. Matali fell from his place, and the golden horse whip from his hands. He cried, "Where are you? Where are you?" And dread gripped me as well to see him panic. Then he said to me, "Partha, the Devas and the Navas once fought a mighty war over the Amrita, and I witnessed the battle. Again, when Sambara was killed, there was a dreadful war. Then, too, I was charioteer to the king of the Devas. I was Indra's Sarathi when Veritrasura was killed. I also saw the savage encounters with Virochana's son Bali, Pralada, and the rest. Oh, I saw all those fearful battles. Pandava, but never before did I lose my senses. Pitamahavarama must have ordained the destruction of the universe, for I can see no other purpose for this battle of battles. When I heard Matali, I made a great effort to calm myself and thought of how I would dispel the illusions that beset us. I said to the frightened charioteer, "Look at the strength of my arms, the power of my astras, and of my Gandiva. I will use magical weapons to dispel this turgid darkness and the other sorceries of the Danavas. Fear not, Sarati, calm yourself." Fighting for the Devas, I made an illusion that could stupefy all beings. These dispelled the Danavas Maya, but some of their most powerful demons attacked me with fresh spells of different kinds. The world seemed to disappear and appear in flashes. It seemed to be swallowed by darkness or submerged in water. When the world became visible again, Matali sat in his seat in the chariot with the reins of the horses in his hand, and he began to range across the field like lightning, making everyone's hair stand on end. The ferocious Nivatakavachas still assailed me, but seizing every opportunity I found, I sent them one by one to Yamaloka. In the midst of the battle that raged, suddenly the Tanavas vanished, cloaked in Maya. Understandable. I no idea. Yeah, yes. I can just repeat myself in that thing of things can get pretty heavy to some degree, I guess. But that's at least that's fine. How do you even interpret it? Wow. I guess yeah. I think I wasn't expecting when they do the brief narrations of the things that will come. I wasn't expecting that it was going to be something like this. Man, what a way of speaking out this stuff, I guess. Why talk about how does it say it? This battle of battles. No, 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 no. Pitamaha Brahma must have ordained the destruction of the universe, for I can see no other purpose for this battle of battles. I think I have one interpretation, but I guess also it's like incredibly subjective. It's just one particular way of speaking about it. I think there is a way in which you can translate most deities as the deity refers to the capacity of oneself, of being themselves, so to speak. A deity is the perfect, the ideal form that any human being could reach in terms of perfection itself. In the Hinduistic texts, what we might identify as deities are diverse final positions of existence of any human that worships them as deities, so to speak. In this case, what we can see is how this the Sarati, what's his name? Matali, Matali, the deity of the control of life, so to speak. The charioteer who chariots, the horses, obviously. So the charioteer who is in control of the wagon of life that everybody is in, let's say like that, might as well have lost the sense of direction in comparison to all the demons that are terrorizing the human being, the most perfect human being available to us to observe, which is, in this case, Arjuna. This trying to mean that possibly the battle that the highest order was ordered Arjuna to go through was not any kind of simple war between human and other beings, but rather the human against all of the divine issues, so to speak, or it's not devils. They do not use devil or yeah. They do not use devil as a word in the way of speaking about it here. It's just different orders of deities who might as well be against the good ones. I guess that's a more understandable explanation, and that leads to basically how what we end up having ourselves is not a simple, yeah, this is just a human having to kill gods, but rather the human having to deal with divine issues. The, the god of direction losing itself into war. The human is standing strong against the mortal perils that are fighting, trying to kill him, and the real goal is to try to see which of these multiple worlds, I guess, can win. It's I don't know, I have to assume a lot of stuff. I think to some degree the logical idea is that if the if Arjuna died here, for example, he would sorry, if he lost, he will die, but also you could assume that he was going to be tortured or put under the service of these other deities. Perhaps it's it's something so open to any kind of guessing game that it is impossible to properly identify which direction this particular narration is trying to take. You can try to apply rules from other places, but I don't think that within their systems of recognition of how in any particular epic of this kind things have to happen, besides the most basic, I guess, yeah, we have to mention our gods or humans or most important humans and their whole set of ordeals throughout the story, as well as the texts that inform us and the gods and what's not, and our rituals and what's not, but there is no proper explanation as okay, and the enemy gods, if they are to subdue humans, they might as well put us through particular types of torment, through particular types of experiences. We know that they are evil people, that's that much we do know, but everything else is sort of impossible to properly understand, I guess. I don't know, it's complicated, that's all I can say. It's complicated. Man. Anyway, what a what a line. What a wonderful set of cantos also, yes. Man. Okay, continuing is Kanto. Also, wait, am I losing it? Yeah, yeah. I was for a second. I was starting to misremember something. Siete de Tuantes Inferno with this story. So yeah, I was for a little bit wrong. Anyway, moving on. Canto 171. Nivatakavatsa Yudha Parva continued. Arjuna continues. Now their ideas fought unseen, their weapons unseen, while I battled on with weapons in plain sight. Wherever I sensed they were, I sloughed off Asura heads with arrows from the Gandiva. The Nivatakavachas withdrew their Maya and fled into their city. When the Daityas fled and the world was visible again, I saw that the dead numbered many hundreds of thousands. Near the slain demons lay their splintered weapons, ornaments, armor, and severed limbs. The field was so crowded with bodies that our horses could not move freely, and they took to the sky. Some Nivatagavachas were still hidden from view, and these filled the sky with rock masses. Mahabharata, other than Avas, burrowed underground and seized our horses' legs and chariot wheels. From above and below, they cast down a barrage of rocks and on the horses and attacked me and my chariot. The rocks that lay around us and those that continued to fall hemmed me in as if sealing me in the mountain cave. Matali saw me oppressed by the rocks that fell and his horses being crushed under their weight. He saw that I was afraid and said, Arjuna, do not be frightened. Loose the Vajra, Purushottama. I invoked Indra's favorite weapon, the inexorable thousand-jointed thunderbolt. Saying its mantra over the Gandiva, I aimed at the battery of falling cracks and loosed iron arrows that bore the Vakara. As they issued from that astra, the iron shafts turned into individual thunderbolts. They pierced the demon's sorcery and struck the Nivatakavachas. From the sky, the Nava's biggest cliffs fell to the earth, cloven by the fervid power of the Vagra. The thunderbolts blasted the Navas who had dragged our horses into the entrails of the earth and dispatched them to Yama. All that place was covered with the mountainous bodies of Nivatakavachas. The dead, the wounded, and the unconscious lay there like scattered crags. Strangely, neither I nor the horses and chariot nor Matali were in the least injured. Matali smiled and said, not even in the Devas, Arjuna, have I seen prowess such as yours. When the demon hosts had been destroyed, the women began to wail in the city like cranes in autumn. Matali and I entered that city, terrifying the Nivatakavacha wives with the rumble of our chariot. The women fled in crowds when they saw 10,000 horses, lustrous as peacocks, and at last the dazzling chariot, bright as the sun. The women's ornaments, falling as they ran, made a sound like that of rocks tumbling down a mountain. The panic-stricken wives of the Lydias fled into their golden palaces that were adorned with countless jewels. Think that incomparable city, even grander than the city of the gods. I asked Matali, why do Trevas not live in a place like this? The city seems to be superior to Purandara's Amaravati. Matali replied, in days gone by, O Partha, this was the city of our Lord of the Devas. Later, the gods were driven from here by the Nivatakavachas. The Nivatakavachas performed the most stringent tapasya, and when they had placed Brahma, they asked him for a moon, that they might live here, invincible to the Devas. Then Sagra addressed Brahma, saying, Oh Lord, do what you consider proper, but keep our welfare in mind. Then, O Mahabharata, the Lord commanded Indra, saying, O slayer of foes, using another body, you will become the nemesis of the Danavas. It was to make this possible that Sakara gave you all the astras. The gods could not themselves slay the demons that you have today. The time had come for you to kill them, and you have done so, foremost of men. Mahendra gave you this supremely potent Devastra so that you could annihilate the Nivatakavachas. After killing the Danavas and subduing their city, I returned to Amaravati with Matali. What a story, Aurora. I think I don't really know. I think the most okay, always observation from the last like two paragraphs. The guy being so directly connected to all of the events in terms of his reincarnation in the body of a Kshatriya, and also he had direct involvement with all of the other things related to this chain of events, I guess. If if he wasn't the main god, all of this wouldn't have happened, obviously, because he's the reincarnation of that god within the body of a different version of themselves, I guess. I don't know how to say it. Because we can assume, yeah, they are divine beings, but at the same time, they are also not so divine in terms of divinity, but more so worshipped human beings. That's why they are so similar to humans in some cases. In this case, what happened was the negative is, yeah, the curse was broken by this guy, as it was said here, because other traditions upheld the devas from destroying the Nivatakavachas, I guess. It it gets to make sense. It isn't something completely impossible of understanding. No, 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 not really something impossible to get, but at the same time, there are so many things that are said in terms of okay, it might as well be the interpretation of a whole siege of armies, while at the same time, what was said before, the narration converts that to some point, to something that we cannot know if it was just one body for the sake of the narration or because it was truly that important. I guess from a from a perspective of talking about the main general of the war, it makes sense that when it talks about all of the people who had been fighting, they use them as in a singular manner because the final reality is, yeah, indeed, Arjuna wasn't hurt at all. He was the main leader, so to speak, of all of that fight. That's why when he sounded the conch, so many other warriors came to assist him to some degree. He stayed back and didn't die, he himself particularly. That's why, and another explanation of how those astras that are unleashed get to happen because they are supposedly thousands of arrows that get to darken entire skies and whatnot. I think it's that particular transformation of the message in terms of yeah, an astras of water and fire and the elements as particular armies centered within their conglomerates to use those elements as tools of war and whatnot. After all, they're not using other sense. They're all, yeah, this particular astra of fire that gets to burn all my enemies down and make sure that even their ashes get to be dissolved into the Valoka. Blah, blah, blah. Yama Loka, sorry. Anyway, I, I don't know. I think there might be things that you can try to say. I don't know if there is anything particularly worth it to say here. Besides that, yeah. He completed his goal and whatnot, but I don't think I see that much more. Yeah, good war, basically. Very good war. Canto 172 and sorry, Canto 172. Nivatakavacha Yudhaparva continued. Arjuna says, on my way back, I saw an unearthly city moving at will, radiant like fire or the sun. In this city were trees made of gems and sweet poised beards of many colors. It had 4 gates, many gateways and towers, and in that impregnable city lived Paulomas and Calacanjas. It was exquisitely wrought from all manner of jewels, and was ethereal and wonderful to look at. The trees of jewels bore flowers and fruit. Extraordinary celestial birds sang from their branches. Blight Assuras wandered its streets and gardens, wearing garlands and carrying double-edged swords, bows, arrows, maces and clubs. Rahan, on seeing that city of deities, I asked Matali, "What is this place that looks so marvelous?" Matali replied, "Once, long ago, a deity's daughter named Puloma and Kalaka, a mighty female of the Ashura race, performed tapasya for 1,000 celestial years. At the end of their penance, Brahma, the self-created one, conferred boons on them, that their children will never suffer misfortune, that they cannot be slain, even by the Devas, the Rakshasas and the Panagas, and that they be given a radiant and incomparable aerial city, furnished with all kinds of gemstones, and impregnable by the Devas, the Maharishis, the Yakshas, the Gandharvas, the Panagas, the Asuras, and the Rakshasas. Baratotama. This is that flying city, devoid of devas, which was created by Brahma himself for the descendants of Kalaka, the Kalakeyas. The city has everything one could ever want, and no illness or grief enters here. It is filled with all things desirable, and disease and suffering are unknown. This celebrated city is called Hirayam, Hiranyapura, peopled by the Paulomas and the Caracanjas, guarded by those mighty Asuras, and, O king, since they cannot be killed by the Devas, they live happily, free from anxiety and having all their desires fulfilled. But Brahma has ordained their destruction by a mortal. O Partha, it is you who must use the Vahara and destroy the very race of Kalakangas. O Lord of Men, having found out that they could not be touched by the Devas and the Asuras, I cheerfully said to Matali, fly into that city. I will obliterate them that hate the King of the Gods. I consider it my dharma to kill any enemy of the Devas. Holy shit. Matali took me near Hiranyapura in the heavenly horse-driven chariot, seeing me, those sons of Diti, wearing diverse kinds of clothes, ornaments, and armor, charged at me in their chariots. They attacked me with arrows, clubs, and double-edged swords, with prowess that defies description. Rahan, using my knowledge of the Astra Shastra, I resisted the great volley of weapons with a wild shower of arrows, and all the Danavas, attacking me from every side, were bemused. Confounded, they began to attack one another. I struck off hundreds of heads with flaming arrows. The sons of Diti fled into their city and, with their magical powers, flew high into the sky. I barred their way with a vast web of arrows. However, the Danamas stood firm in their city, which flew wherever they willed. Radiant as the sun, the city plunged down to earth. It took off again. It flew in an arc. It went underwater. Parantapa, I never paused my attack on that incredible city. That was like Amaravati to behold. I stormed Hiranyapura and all the deities in it, with the legion of Vastras. Broken by my volleys, the city of the Asuras fell to the earth, grievously wounded by my weapons. Of the speed and the sound of thunder, demons wandered about in a daze, without a will of their own, as if moved only by destiny. Matari flew her chariot of solar effulgence into the sky, and then down to land on earth. Oh, Mahabharata, surrounding me were 60,000 war chariots, with enraged deities in them, eager for battle with me, but I killed them all with vulture-fettered arrows. Confident that a mortal could hardly vanquish them, their attacks swelled in a surging tide. I loosed the Vastras one by one. But those Maharajas restrained each one, and on the field I saw hundreds of and thousands of mighty demons moving about in their chariots in diverse maneuvers. They were splendid with the sheer variety of their armor, their ornaments and their flags. They were a delight to the eyes. Set upon by the innumerable warriors, heavily armed and skilled in battle, I was overwhelmed, and fear gripped me. I invoked Rudra, the supreme god, and saying, "May welfare attend on all beings," I chanted the mantra for the Raudrastra, scourge of all enemies. At once I saw a being with 3 heads, 9 eyes, 3 faces, and 6 arms. His hair blazed like fire over the sun, and, oh Parantapa, on his body he wore huge snakes darting out their tongues. Seeing Rudra the Eternal before me, my fear melted away, and I set his weapon on the Gandiva, bowed to the 3-eyed one of the measureless Texas and released it, willing it to consume the Danavas, Lord of Men. As soon as it was loosed, a multitude of forms were manifested. Deer, lions, tigers and bears, buffaloes, snakes and cows, and sarabjas and elephants, apes, bulls and boars, cats and dogs, ghosts, alborundas, vultures and garudas, chamaras and leopards, mountains and seas, devas, rishis and gandharvas, pisachas and yakshas, asuras, guryakas and nairitras, elephant-mounted sharks, owls, creatures with the forms of fish and horses, other macabre bearing swords and other weapons, and the Rakshasas branding maces and clubs. When that weapon was loosed, the whole universe appeared. filled with all these and other beings, these multifarious beings. Some had pieces of flesh, fat, bones, and marrow sticking to them. Others had 3 heads or 4 tusks, or 4 mouths or 4 arms, attacked the Navas again and again, and held them at bay. Then, my brother, in a single moment I slew all those Navas with a swarm of arrows imbued with the hardness of rocks, flaming like agony or Surya, and the little as thunderbolts. I saw the Navas, brought down by the Gandiva, fell from the sky and bowed once more to the supreme god, destroyer of the Asuras of Tripura. The celestial Sarati Matali was delighted to see those Daityas, adorned with ethereal ornaments, annihilated by the Raudrastra. Having witnessed my feats, which even the Celestials could not accomplish, Sacred Charioteer paid me homage. With joined hands, he said, the gods could not have done what you have today. Indeed, not even the king of Devas himself could have accomplished this. Hiranyapura was invincible. It could not be touched by the Devas or Asuras. But you have destroyed it with your strength and the power of your tapasya, O Kshatriya. When the ethereal city had been ruined and its demons slain, their wives came streaming out, their hair disheveled, and keening loudly like curare beards, they wailed in grief for the loss of their sons, brothers, and fathers. They fell on the ground, crying hoarsely. They beat their breasts for having been widowed, and their garlands and jewelry fell from them. The golden city of the Danavas, which once looked like a Gandharva city, resounded with lamentation and was denuded of beauty, like a lake without elephants, or a forest stripped of trees. Deprived of its masters, it lost its luster, and it disintegrated as if it had been made of clouds. My task accomplished, Matali took me back to Amaravati, the deathless abode of Indra. Having vanquished and killed the Nivatakavachas and destroyed Hiranyapura and its Kalakeyas, I came and stood, my head bowed, before Indra. Matali described to him all that I had done in detail. It was with great delight that the Manus heard about the destruction of Hiranyapura, the undoing of the illusions and the slaughter of the Nivatakavachas in battle. Thousand-eyed Purandara was pleased, no end, and cried, well done! And Indra and the Devas applauded, even cheered for me, even cheered me for a long time. Indra said, you have achieved a feat that neither the Devas nor the Asuras could. O Partha, by slaying my enemies, you have paid my Guru Dakshina. Therefore, Dhananjaya, I grant that in battle you will always stay calm and discharge your weapons unerringly, and you will be irresistible to Devas, Danavas, Rakshasas, Yakshas, Asuras, Gandharvas, Pakshis, and Nagas. Through the might of your arms, Kunti's son Yudhishthira will conquer the earth and rule it. Says Arjuna. Man, I that's count to 172, I guess. What a what a story, brother. There are so many possibilities. Once again, I think to some degree, what makes it so funny is that you can talk about all of this in so many ways. The manner in which all of the story of the Pandava Arjuna happens, the way in which all of this narrative is driven, makes it look like, besides the predestination of things, which is to some degree an unavoidable mention here, an element of the different wars between the not just the civilizations. If these people, what's their name? Kshatriya, Hiranyapura, yeah, Devas. Uh, what's the name of these people who were destroyed? The Daityas. The Daityas, I guess, are. Is that their name? No, right? It's Matali. Uh, Daityas? Are they Daityas? I think Daityas is. Okay, Kalakanjas, that's the category. Kalakanjas. The Kalakanjas are. What are they? I- the other, the other thing was, as I said before, maybe you can try to see the Asuras and the Devas as not just deities, but also beings that existed in terms of human beings that were worshipped for their importance. Because you can see how also these other divine beings get to be treated as humans to some degree. The natural, the natural way in which they are described as, I don't know, having cities for them, having complex relationships, having families, having. I think something weird in this is that there are no kids being mentioned. It's a very crude description of things to some degree, but something weird is to see that there are no mentions of infants throughout the whole story. I I remember having read out all of that in a different from a completely different place. Something that happens in these sorts of cultures that do not develop in that sense as fast is kids are not truly categorized as something of their own. There are just tiny humans that have to play the same roles. Let's say like this whole idea of following karma and dharma that the Kshatriyas and the Brahmanas have to do exists from the very conception of of the human being. So you always need to be paying attention to those things. And one of the best justifications for the death of any infant, even in that sense, is that their karma was already charged enough, or their dharma was not being properly taught. So that's why they found themselves there. In none of this, they are lacking. Despite the possibility of talking about the kids as warriors, which might be something that gets excluded because of that, I think, I don't know, I have to assume that the way in which arranged marriages worked made even kids be widows, young women be widows in that sense, as in woman infants, or yeah, uh, female infants, that's the proper term, be widows because those arrangements are made since the moment they are born or so. But what a crazy thing. I didn't take that into consideration, yeah, but besides that, I think the most interesting part about this this one story is how everything disappears after they are done. after supposedly Arjuna is done, that's where the narration gets blurry. Is it a whole army? Is it literally just Arjuna? Why does it get told in that particular way? Why not say that I don't know Arjuna is with a whole group of people, or he wasn't fighting against an entire civilization, so to speak. Also, I have to say, was it here? Dali set upon at once this thing, yeah. When the weapon was loosed, the whole universe appeared. What? That whole narration, that whole line, just uh, this whole contrast of an incredibly divine event next to then, my brother, in a single moment I slew all those unawed with a swarm of arrows. Wow. Literally unfolds the whole universe in front of them, then shoots them with a tiny rock. I don't know how to interpret that. What the fuck is that talking about? What is. I don't know. I guess being a subject of my own time, I can only talk. Maybe it was something like an atomic bomb, or something of that sort, something even more destructive, because that killed. I think I understand that killed most of them. That was what damaged these enemies the most. And every other enemy that was still alive was being killed by Arjuna himself after that weapon was unleashed. But what is it? Eh, oh yeah, it's an astra. An astra of the whole universe contained within one being. What? Uh, I don't know. It's something. I guess it's if nothing else, it's something. So yeah, that's good enough, I guess. But yeah, at least it also works from a more narrative perspective. It sets the what is it? The grounds for this guy. What's the word? This Arjuna getting the victory, and this and even more this final line. Through the might of your arms, Kunti's son Yudhishthira will conquer the earth and rule it. Uh, as far as I remember, Yudhishthira is like one of the good guys, right? Supposedly, I think so. As far as I remember. So, anyways, we will see. Time for a comeback, I guess. I don't know. Canto 173. Niutakavacha Yudha Parava continued. Arjuna continues. As I stood there, my wounds still bleeding, Indra, king of the Devas, acknowledged me as his own and said, Arjuna, all the Devastras are with you, and no man on earth will be able to overpower you. My son, when you are on the battlefield, Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Karna, and Sakuni, together with all the other Kshatriyas, will not be equal even to a 16th part of what you are. The Lord Maghavat gave me this golden garland and this conch shell, Devadatta of the mighty wars. And also, he's an earthly, impenetrable male. With his own hands, he set this crown on my head. Sakura presented me with these heavenly garments, and with rare ornaments of unearthly craft. Thus was I honored, Rahand, and I lived joyfully in Indra's sacred abode. Sacred abode with the children of the Gandharvas. Sakura was pleased, as were the devas. One day he said to me, "O Arjuna, your brothers pine for you. The time has come for you to live. O king, this is how I spent my 5 years in Devaloka." Thinking all the while of the troubles that we now endure because of the gambling. Here I am now, come to the foothills of the Gandhamadana and unite. What? What? Here I am now, come to the come to the foothill of the Gandhamadana and united again with my brothers. Uh, what's a weird sentence? Yudhishthira says, Danankaya. Yeah, Yudhishthira was. We are fortunate that you have acquired the Astras and that you have worshipped the king of the Devas, Parantapa. It bodes well that the Lord Stanu and his goddess appeared before you, and that you gratified them in battle. We are fortunate to have met the Lokapalas, Partha. We are lucky to have prospered and that you have come back to us. Today I feel elated, as if the Haratirashtra's sons have already been quelled and the earth, with all her cities, have already become ours. Mahabharata, I am curious to see these devastras with which you killed the Nivatakavachas. Arjuna says, tomorrow morning you will see all the divine weapons with which I slew the fierce Nivatakavachas. Having thus related all that transpired before his return, Dhananjaya passes the night with his brothers. Okay, okay, easy enough. I think it's complicated. Wow. The most basic thing to see, first and foremost, to avoid abilities, it seems to me quite obvious that both, let's say, the more. Okay, the Pandavas who were involved in this process of going through the Tirthas and whatnot, what was this other part of the story in which they had to purify themselves and perform oblations for the sake of, how to speak, how do you say it? Performing penance for their mistakes and whatnot. What's the proper word is repenting, basically. We can trace it to the tirtas are a form of repentment that those who did wrong have to go through. In one hand, in the other hand, what Arjuna had to go through was a sort of military training that allows him to be capable of wielding all the weapons that they might need to be capable of dominating in battle the the, the bad guys. I don't even remember their names. But that's basic idea, but most simplest of ideas. What is also there to say is, think something very important is that these guys, let's say, had to process the same event. Both they are not really two different parties. It's literally just one guy and the whole rest of the family having to perform different processes, but both parties, in that sense, needed to become better in order to overcome the negative situation. That's basic line. But at the same time, I don't know, it's complicated to be capable of properly mentioning it. I don't know. I can try to trace some similarities, like, because they repented enough, they now regained the belief that they can get anywhere. It's a dangerous word because it's a modern word that I am pretty sure they would have not used in any part of this place at all. But the mental state in which the rest of the Pandavas lived, besides Arjuna, was a more negative one. And that's why they needed to go through the Tirthas to see the world, be capable of changing their minds and performing penance for their mistakes. On one hand, while on the other, what happens with somebody like Arjuna is a different event of kinds. Because, first and foremost, what Arjuna needs to do is to become a house power, to allow his brothers to rely on him so that they can win the upcoming war. That's sort of basic. I don't see that much more inside of that, but at the same time, I don't know. It's complicated. I think it doesn't sound like that much like an impossible story. It's more like a. I think, yeah, you cannot say an average family, but it's the narration of some king, basically, who had to go through the life resignified as a greater epic for the sake of value, of importance, something like that. Uh, I don't know, man. I don't really know, but it's something. It's at the very least, it's something that we can see. I guess I don't know. Let me see. Perhaps I am at this point. I might be also ignoring something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you cannot really have any sort of conversation about 5 fucking years in one day, in one night. Eh, I think there are some measurements of time incredibly bad kept here. If nothing else, the measures of things are in so bad. Anyways, at least they are something, I guess. So yeah, Canto 174. Continuing. Moving on. Canto 174. Nivataka Vacha Yudhaparva continued. By Sampayana continued. When day breaks, Dharmaraja Yudhishthira rises and, together with his brothers, performs the dawn rituals. Then says to Arjuna, the joy of his mother, Kaunteya, show me the weapons with which you slew the Danavas. And Arjuna observes all the proper rites of purification and then displays the devastras that the gods gave him. Then Akaya has the earth for his chariot, the mountain for its central pole, the base of the mountain for its axle, the clump of elephant bamboo for its socket pole. He is resplendent in his unearthly armor as he takes up the Gandiva and the Devadatta and invokes the Astras one by one. As each weapon is set on the bow, the earth trembles under the weight of Arjuna's feet. The trees shatter, rivers and immense ocean churn, rocks burst apart, the sun stops shining, fires stop burning, Brahmanas stop reciting the Vedas, and the very air is hushed. Oh, Hanamehaya, the creatures that live under the earth's crust rise to the surface and surround the Pandava, their faces contorted and their hands folded, quivering in fear. The Astras scourge them and they pray to Arjuna to spare their lives. The Brahmarishis, the Siddhas, and the Maharishis, indeed, all mobile beings arrived there, the foremost Devarishis, the Devas, the Yakshas, the Rakshasas, and the Gandharvas, the, Gara- the Garutmats, and other beings of the air also appear. The Pitamaha, the Lokabalas, and the divine Mahadeva come with their retinues. Then, O great king, Bayu, the wind god, comes bearing unearthly flowers and strews them over to the Pandava. The Gandharvas sing and Apsaras dance. Then Narada arrives and addresses Sparta in gentle words, saying, O Arjuna, do not lose the Devastras. They should never be released without a proper target. And even when there is one, they should not be used unless every other weapon has failed you. O son of the Gurus, to discharge these astras without legitimate cause is fraught with great evil. Then Anhaya, keeping these weapons as you have been instructed will add to your strength and happiness. But if they are not properly revered, they will become the instruments of the destruction of the three worlds. So, Pandava, never do this again. Yudhishthira, you will see these astras when Partha uses them in battle to raise his adversaries. Having stopped Partha from what he was about to do, the mortals and the others who came there go their separate ways. The Pandavas and Krishna continue to live in that same forest, in joint and contentment. What? He almost destroyed the entire fucking reality and nothing ever happens? What? Eh, okay. How do you read that? What just happened, brother? I have no idea. What is this about? What is all of this about, man? Is this about? Let me see, let me see. Let me try to understand. What? The entire, no, okay, it's A proper expression would be the entireness of reality has to look at this one event in order to make sure that they do not stop existing. But at the same time, it's not something bad because it will unavoidably happen. It can be a tool of proper distraction of just one thing and not the whole of reality. What? What? What are the what are those astras, brother? Okay, let me be incredibly deranged. Uh, what we are talking about here. Does that make any sense? Am I going too crazy to say that? These are nuclear weapons, I guess? The Astras are nuclear weapons which are capable of destroying the wholeness of reality? Because indeed, they can take out everything from the world if they are used without any proper target. That's, I guess, the idea. Uh, that's the only thing I can see. Do I not get what is an Astra, brother? I knew an Astra was a sort of mystical weapon, of divine weapon, I guess, but no idea. Something that can destroy the entireness of reality, that every single creature tries to stop from being ever used, while at the same time being something that can kill just one particular something, anything. What? Eh, is it something like thoughts? I guess I don't know. I I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. He has okay. Count Dea, show me the weapons with which you slew Tyrannavas. He has those weapons. He can reutilize them. They are not limited. What are they? Are they plagues or something like that? What are those things supposed to be? Besides the classification of, oh wow, yeah, an Astra. What would, how would an Astra work in reality to have that same effect? I don't know. I guess, is there really nothing to come up with that? I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I guess moving on, I assume. Let's let's try to do at least this one. Maybe this one makes more sense. Maybe maybe that's more simple to read. I don't know. Anyway, please be fucking understandable. Canto 175. Ahara Parva. Hanamahaya said, when that Vesta among Kshatriyas returned from Indraloka after having mastered the Devastras, how did the sons of Parita spend their time? By Sampayana said, peerless among men and equal to Indra, those Kshatriyas in suitable azure gardens of the Lord of Treasures, spread over the woods on that incomparable mountain. Kiriti, best among men, wanders through charming glades, full of trees of all kinds, but with his bow in hand and his mind always on the war ahead. With by Sarvana's generosity and favor, the princes live in that beautiful place, their minds detached from material pleasure. Rather, they enjoy the simple peace of their lives. Having Arjuna back with them makes the time pass quickly. 4 years seem like one night. For the Pandavas, 10 years. These 4 years and the previous six drift smoothly by. One day at the one, fast forward, one day at the end of 10 years of exile, the impetuous Bhima, son of Bayu, sits with Sisnu and the godlike twins before Yudhishthira, and in blessing, earnest words says to him, it is only to keep your word that we do not leave the forest to kill Suryodhana and his followers. He has deprived us of our happiness. This is the 11th year for exile in the wilderness. It will be easy to go and discover by that evil man, led by you. We have wandered through these jungles, giving no thought to our condition, and free from anxiety. Suryodhana will not believe that we have left this place for a distant land. Once we have lived there for a year, we can avenge ourselves on that evil one and his followers. We will easily kill that most malignant of men and reclaim our kingdom. Oh, Dharmaraja, you must now return to the world below. If we stay on in this heavenly place, we will forget our sorrows, and your fame will wither away like a wilting flower's fragrance and disappear. By gaining the kingdom of the Kurusayars, you will attain glory and perform many yagnas. What Kubera has given you here, you can have on your own. Purushottama, and at any time. Now, O Maharata, it is time to concentrate on punishing the enemies who wronged us grossly. Rahan, the wielder of the Thunderbolt himself cannot withstand your power. Arjuna has only universal welfare at heart. He has Krishna, whose emblem is Suparna, for his friend, and seen his grandson Satyaki as well. Arjuna feels no pain, ever, not even in battle against the Devas. He has no equal in strength, and neither do I. O Yudhishthira, I am as devoted to your good as Krishna and the Yadavas. And the heroic twins are masters of war. When we meet the enemy, we will extinguish him and ensure your return to wealth and prosperity. Incredibly fucking violent. When he hears the course of action they prefer, the bountiful and peerless son of Dharma, who knows all about Dharma and Artha, whose prowess is limitless, walks around by Ravana in reverent pradakshina. Dharmaraja Yudhishthira bids farewell to the palaces, rivers, lakes, and all the Rakshasas, and he faces the path they took to come here. Yudhishthira Mahatman looks at the supreme mountain and says, O Lord of mountains, grant that I, together with my friends, see you again after I have killed my enemies and regained my kingdom. Grant that I perform tapasya here with my senses controlled. With his brothers and the Brahmanas, the king of the Kurus will return by the same path that brought them to the holy mountain, and Gatotkacha and his companions will carry them over the mountain's cascades. As they are about to begin their journey, Rishi Namasa advises them, as a father would his sons, and he departs for Devaloka. Arastisena, too, gives them wise counsel, and the sons of Parita begin their journey, and they see many sacred theaters as ramas and great lakes on their way. Not, not, not even, not even a piece of, not even a piece of what Artisena or not. Anyway, nothing that Lomas and Artisena say. Thank you. I guess we didn't need the council. I don't know. Is there anything to say? I think they are like incredibly violent, I guess. Oh yeah. We're going to kill very intensely our enemy. Wow. Very clever idea. I guess. I don't know. Yeah. War, I guess that's what's going to happen right now. I don't know. I am more than anything else. I am wondering. The story moved so incredibly fast out of nowhere. What are the is that why stuff like the Bhagavad Gita also exist within this story? That must be completely unrelated to this. This cannot just contain that war. I obviously, I mean, that's part of the fun of this to see all the other stories and the side stories that get told, like just what we saw literally 3 or 4 cantos ago. But yeah. Anyway, uh, I don't know. Vengeance. That's the point. Yeah, killing people good. I guess. That that's the biggest takeaway from this. I don't know. Be the righteous person who kills your enemy first. Ah, whatever. Completely whatever. I, let me see. I think okay. We can try to go to very least like 2 more probably. These 2 next cantos take into consideration that they are quite short. Uh, I don't know. I think I wouldn't say it is devoid of content in any way, but they are incredibly prideful. That's what I can say. They take too much pride on that they are good and that they are the ones who will end up winning and vengeance and getting their stuff back and comparing themselves to others. I don't know. For a second, I don't feel like the story is the same as what we were reading before. The whole process about how they got wrongfully robbed out of everything, how they had to go through the punishment of their one wife being tarnished by the gurus and whatnot. It's it's completely different to this. I don't know. Anyway, Canto 176. Akagara Parva continued. By Sampayan said, when they lived their home in the mountain of 1,000 waterfalls, and bears and ate-legged elephants and Kubera's supernatural attendants, sadness goes with those best of the Maharajas. When they have gone for some distance, they see Kubera's favorite mountain, Kailasa, like a great white cloud in the sky, and their hearts soars with elation. Armed with swords and bows, they continue on their way, and they see hills and narrow gorges, dens of lions and craggy pathways, more waterfalls on the plains below. They see other great forests where deer, birds, and elephants throng in great numbers. They come upon blight woods? I don't know what's that. They come on upon blight woods, turquoise rivers, lakes and mountain caverns, which often become their home during the day as well as at night. After living in all kinds of inhospitable places and crossing Kailasa of the untold majesty, they reach the ashram of Raharishi Brishaparva. He receives them warmly and, shedding their fatigue, they tell him the story. Eh? Sorry, I, I lost myself. They stay only. I can't. Here. They tell him the story of their assessor in the mountains. They stay one night in this sacred hermitage, which Maharishis and Devas visit, then travel on to the great Badari tree Visala. Here at Badarikar, Badarikarasma, where Narayana dwells, they remain happily for a time, within sight of Kuvera's lake that the Devas and Siddhas frequent. Just as blemishless Brahmana rishis attain bliss on reaching the gardens of Nandana, so do the Pandavas set all grief when they see that lake. The Kshatriyas spend a happy month in Badari, and then resume their journey towards the dominions of Subahu, king of the Kiratas. Still treading the path by which they came, they have to cross the difficult terrain of the Himalayas, the countries of Pina, Tushara, Darada, pass through all the provinces of Kuninda, reaching treasures before they reach Subahu's capital. Subahu is excited when he hears of their arrival and comes out to meet them. Yudhishthira greets him, and here the Pandavas are joined by all their charioteers led by Visakha, their attendants, Indrasena and the others, their personal servitors and kitchen servants. The company breaks journey here for a night. Then, giving Gatotkacha and his followers leave to go, they take their chariots and sarathis and head towards the King of Mountains, near the Yamuna River. The range of Himavana abounds in waterfalls, silvery against grey slopes and snow-covered summits. The Pandavas find their way to the great forest of Visakhayupa, which is like the forest of Chitrarata. Here, where wild boars and a variety of deer and birds live, they decided to make their home. Hunting for their food, the sons of Parita peacefully live in this forest for 1 year. In a cavern of the mountain, buried Kodara's heart fills with grief and he panics when he comes upon a massive, fierce-looking snake, obviously starving and looking like death itself. Yudhishthira, most virtuous of men, of boundless strength, frees Bhima from the coils of the mighty serpent that holds him fast when he goes near it. And so the 12th year of their sojourn in the forests begin, the science of the Kuru, blazing in splendor, engaging in the most rigid tapasya, devoted to their daily practice of archery, leave that forest that is like the Chaitra and go to the edges of the desert, and from there to the river Saraswati, on whose banks they want to live a while. From the Saraswati, they go to the lake in the Dvaitavana. The inhabitants of the Dvaitavana are all ascetics of various religious orders who practice self-restraint, sitting in deep dhyana and, being tuteless, subsist on food ground with stone. On the arrival of the Pandavas, the sadhus bring grass mats and water pots and come forward to greet them. On the banks of nearby Golden Saraswati grow myriad trees. The holy people de Rudraksha, de Rohitaka, de Plaksha, de Vadari, de Kadira, de Sirisha, de Vilva, de Nguda, de Karira, de Pilu, and de Sami, wandering contentedly about in the vicinity of the Saraswati, a home of the Devas and the favorite resort of Yakshas, Gandharvas and Maharishis. The princes are at some peace. I feel like I'm not reading from the same writer. How can you tell me that Bhima, what has been so called one of the most undefeatable creatures, was being terrified by one snake. It's Bricolara's grave. Massive, fierce-looking snake. Not even a naga. The nagas are snakes of this culture that are a lot more powerful. Just a normal, regular snake? I don't think so, brother. I think whoever, whoever was talking about these people cannot keep the canon of what the author or writer understood. Ah, man. What a failure, but anyway, I guess, yeah, most of that is also alter rituals and none of the stuff that they have to do to make sure that they pass completely unaltered and whatnot. It takes them 12 years. We're on the final year of their whole journey to getting, or towards getting properly back to their place, their country, their now occupied country. So yeah, I I don't know. I don't see anything else to really say. I guess it's on the ritual of these ascetics that live in Teruaita. I guess that's something minimal important, but that's also something very, very specific to. Oh yeah, yeah. This particular group of religious followers just believe that it is useful to eat food that has already been smashed with rocks and whatnot, and they are incredibly hospitable with random people because they supposedly do not have to say that they are Tapandavas, they are random people to this group of religious humans. I don't know. I might have not really missing anything. There are we have encounters like this one that are also incredibly simple in terms of description. It's just oh yeah, two people just meet one another and they have a conversation. Two governors have a simple meeting. That's the simpler way of explaining Yudhishthir and the other guy meeting with all of their servants behind them and blah blah blah. No man. Uh, oh yeah. I cannot really see anything spiritual being said so far. Or anything with a double entendre sort of thing that can be interpreted. Yeah, I can still try to go back to what I mentioned before. This Astra that is literally the wholeness of existence. I have no idea what can be that. I don't know. I guess at best the only possible expression that they can have for that is like a cognitive hazard of the highest degree possible that destroys anyone who sees it, so to speak. That's why also it is important to keep it suppressed when it is not necessary to be used. I don't know, man. Continuing. Canto 177. Agara Barba continued. Karamechaya said, how is it, wise one, that Bhima of the mighty prowess, who was the strongest 10,000 elephants, was stricken with panic at the sight of that snake? You have described how he was horrified and alarmed, this man who slew hundreds of yakshas and rakshasas by the lotus-filled lakes of Kuvera forests, and who, in arrogant defiance, dared Kuvera to fight him. I am curious and want to hear about this. But Sampayana said, Rahan, in Brishaparva's hermitage, those fearful warriors live amidst enchanting glades, roaming about carefree, bow and sword in hand. Rikodara comes upon an emerald forest, frequented by devas and Gandharvas. He sees secret places upon the Himalaya, frequented by the Varishis and Siddhas, and inhabited by Apsaras. These echo with the sweet warbling of birds. The Chakora, the Chikravaka, the Hibahibaka, the Kokila, and the Brigan, Bringara, oh my, Bringaraja, and are lush with shady trees clothed in snow-soft leaves, which bear perennial fruits and flowers. He sees mountain streams, whose waters glisten like lapis lazuli, with 10,000 perfectly white ducks and swans upon them, and surrounded by forests of deodar trees that seem to form a net to trap the clouds. He sees otter trees, Tungan Kali and Kaliyaka, inst- interspersed with yellow sandalwood trees, measurelessly strong. He ranges these uninhabited forests in pursuit of game, shooting animals with purified arrows. Mighty Vimasena, as strong as 100 elephants, kills huge wild boar with his bare hands, blessed with a dreadful strength, like some lion or tiger. He who can fight 100 at once kills antelope and boar and bison and many elephants whose strength is as his own. He uproots trees and breaks them, filling the forests with noise, ever youthful, proud and fearless. Vimasena happily rampages through the woods, bellowing his war cry, striking his arms and clapping his hands. Fierce lions and great tuskers flee in terror at the sound of his boldest of men fearlessly prowling their home in search of game. He penetrates into the depths of the vast forest and terrifies all the animals with his shouts. Snakes slither into caves for shelter. The godlike Bhimasena sees an enormous naga coiled in a cave. It sees its gigantic body filling it entirely, so big that it makes one's hair stand on end. Its colossal body is like a yellow and speckled hill. Its cape-like mouth is red and has 4 fangs. Its eyes bulge and its forked tongue darts in and out, licking the corners of its mouth. Looking like Yama, it strikes terror into all living creatures as it hisses at any intruder. Seeing him approach, in a flash the infuriated snake seizes Bhimasena in its coils. The serpent has a wound, which makes Bhimasena lose consciousness in its clasp. Although Bhima is supremely strong, the naga overpowers him and he trembles feebly in its gargantuan coils. His shoulders are like a lion's. His strength is that of 10,000 elephants, but Mahabahu Bhima is overpowered by the snake with the wound and seized by it. All his strength drains from him. He struggles desperately to extricate himself, but cannot. Okay, so this is the story of that snake that somehow overpowered the normal. What we should read? Okay, this is an elaborated narration of the previously briefly read story of Bhima getting overwhelmed by one snake, literally. Anyway, I don't know. I guess I should try to finish it. I suppose. I don't really get it. What is the point of boons? Boons seem to work like, to some degree, the best tools for any event to happen, or for any event to be performed, so to speak. If there are no boons, there are no things that happen in any sense. Because what I said, Bhima shouldn't have been bitten by that snake, yet because it had a bone, he was bitten. And he was starting to get overwhelmed by it, and probably even be quote unquote close to dying, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I think it had a lot more narrations of a simpler kind before in terms of possible meanings, but here it's just lacking anything. It's just, oh yeah, yeah. The Pandavas are having these experiences and these other things and blah 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 blah. Blah. I don't know. I don't see it as anything particularly controversial, I guess, or anything particularly full of anything. But yeah, I don't know. I okay, I can say this canto is not going to be the last one about the giant snake story. So yeah, we have to read like 3 or 4 cantos. I can probably leave that for the next time, I guess, instead of right now. Let me see. This is the canto that we are living in. 178, I guess. Uh, there it is. Let me take this out. Take this out. Uh, Let me save this before I forget. What are how many did I read? Well, like 20, 22, 23, something like that, I guess. So yeah, probably take into consideration how the empty pages work. It's more like 18, 17 at best. Not that many. Uh, but yeah, yeah, that's good enough, I guess. I don't know. I guess tomorrow we'll not continue with this, but do something else. Continue with life. In other terms, I have to still try to finish the whole writing and stuff. So yeah, that's also another complicated thing to try and do. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's it for today. I guess I don't have that much more to add personally. But yeah, it was good. It was solid, I guess. So yeah, uh, good night, good evening. Thanks for editing. See you next time. Wow.